bad movies, bad life advice, and even worse life decisions. We cover it all here on the Life with Kenny podcast. I'm your host, Kenny. Grab a beer, sit back, and relax for this week's episode, because things are about to get weird.
What's an all-American girl like you doing with a geek like this?
Forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
Fuck me gently with a chainsaw.
Jimmy was off the hook. I know you really don't listen to Slipknot.
Does your Rhino?
You are listening to a Life with Kenny podcast.
Not quite my tempo. It's all good. No worries. Here we go.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Life with Kenny podcast. We are doing a Life Legends episode 10, I believe. This week we do not have Victoria with us, but we do have Kyle.
Birthday boy.
Weird because she was here like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's
It's
still
wild.
Still Kyle's birthday a week later, just like every other basic white girl out there.
I'm a
it's
princess.
my birthday week.
Well,
Patrick is also here.
hello, I'm eating ice cream from Dairy Queen for the first time, and it's fucking beautiful.
Thank you.
Not an ad, not a
You didn't make
sponsor.
it. Don't take
Welcome to
credit for it.
Canada. Thank you for appreciating my gift to you,
Thank you. As late as my birthday now.
the Queen of.
Fuck you, Kyle.
So this week, I don't think we have any games, but Kyle does have a couple stories we'll dive into. I also have a couple stories. All of my stuff this week is Nazi related. Let me just get out of the way. Nothing here is pro-Nazi. Fuck the Nazis. Fuck Germany, etc.
Well, no,
but-
some of Germany is.
No,
Yeah.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Germany, we forgive you.
Just keep your poop porn. That's all I gotta say.
You can bring some over.
So the reason that I wanted to talk about, these quote unquote secret weapons the Nazis are rumored to be developing. Some of the weird shit that they were in, to like a lot of occult stuff, and everybody knows like the horrific acts that they do of like murder and all that stuff. But a lot of people aren't familiar with the experimentations. Patrick, I don't know why that's funny to you. You just cracked open a beer. Oh my god.
No, it's just. He was trying to do it so quietly, but like, what the fuck do you expect? It's a can. It's- oh, so fucking funny.
Yeah, so the biggest
Sorry.
reason I want to talk about this is because we're going to be watching Overlord for the podcast, which going into, I'm not going to say much because Kyle hasn't seen it, but I think it's really, it will add to watching that movie if you are familiar with some of the atrocities
It's
that they
worryingly
committed
not a
behind
far
closed doors.
cry from the actual reality of some of the shit they were doing.
And that's
Right.
kind of what I wanted to point out. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about. We'll dive into some of that stuff a little bit later. But for now, Kyle, you want to tell us some stories to start us off with some light stuff? Or
I don't
what?
really know how to just jump into a story.
You just start telling it.
All right, so I got this one story.
What?
Once upon a
Did you guys see Sum 41's playing the X Free show this year?
Hell yeah.
Are we all gonna go?
What's that? Where is it?
Do you know Sum 41?
Yeah.
You know the exhibition? It's like the carnival they have every year for like a week.
Whereabouts?
Prairie Land.
No.
All right, we'll probably go just for the free show.
Yeah.
You pay like you pay your
Admission fees.
admission fee, which I think is like I would guess like $15,
$20.
and that doesn't include any rides. That's just to get into the place.
Okay.
But they always do a free show with admission, and this year Sum 41's playing, which is really cool.
So if you go on that day, you get to go see Sum 41 play for free.
Fuck yeah.
Technically, but
And
not
you
really
can
because you're
also-
paying $20.
But you can also go on rides. You can get wasted in the beer gardens because they have other bands playing sometimes. They have all kinds of crazy shit. The one year I went, actually, we have a couple stories about
Yeah,
the
that's why I
exhibition.
brought this up. So those one story I wanted to tell was about. I think that was like one of the first times that I went to the X as a teenager,
Right.
and we went there with two of our friends, and we all showed up there.
Nailed it.
We all showed up there to see. There was this band playing called Stereos. Have you ever
Yes.
heard of them?
Doo-wop, doo-wop,
Stereos.
let's make it happen, baby.
No, I've not.
So-
heard of
Doo-wop,
stereos.
all
Do you
the
know? Do you know
No.
Down with Webster?
Who's Webster?
There were two shitty Canadian bands that were on a show. We have a used to have, I should say, a music TV show called Much Music, or TV channel.
All right.
It's basically Canadian MTV.
Should I play a clip of
so-
Stereos?
If you want. Hopefully we don't get flagged. So the idea was there was a show on that called Disband, where they had a bunch of bands in Toronto, and they had basically like American Idol type judges come and see these bands perform. They give them a week after giving them like some criticism to get their shit together based on the judges' criticism. After that week, they perform for like record execs. It's basically just like trying out for the label essentially, and they do this for all these bands.
Yeah.
One of the bands is Stereos, and the other one was this band called Down with Webster, which was like a shitty pop rock band that had rapping in it.
Yeah.
And they blew up really
I
big after
actually
that,
don't
but
mind Down with Webster. Some of their stuff is
They sampled
good.
Rich Girl by Hall & Oates for one of their songs.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Stereos band, I think they were from Alberta.
I'm pretty sure every
couple
band
of-
was from Ontario.
No, because a couple guys from a band that we played shows with went to high school with some of these guys and said like they were all in metal bands and then made this band. Don't quote me on that, but that's how I remember it. Anyways, here's a really quick clip of Stereos just so you know what we're listening to. Like your typical boy band, blah, blah, blah. But
All right.
known as like all guys from metal
So
core
Kyle, show Patrick a picture of this band so he has an idea of what we're working with.
All right.
So Stereos is basically the what's that band? 303. They're basically 303.
Oh, yeah.
So notice the guy with the long hair.
I see him.
Okay,
Kyle
typical
used to
emo boy.
kind of look like that guy.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So we
the
went
long
to
hair.
So we went to the X. Me, Kenny, and
I wasn't there. It was
You weren't there?
because you and Galen went to go see Stereos, and I
yeah,
hated
because we
that
thought it
band,
would be fucking hilarious to see these guys.
in quotes.
Yeah, and then so we went there, and we went with one of our other. We went with our drummer from our band, and then a mutual friend, who kind of he wore a leather jacket and like kind of acted like a rock star too.
Yeah.
So we all showed up there. We're all wearing like fake Ray-Bans, looking like we're fucking
Super
rock
tight
stars,
pants,
right?
Yeah.
tight shorts, tank tops.
We're standing there waiting for Down with Webster to start. They were opening up for Stereos, and this little kid comes up to me, and he goes, oh my god, it's you! And he was freaking out, and we're all wearing sunglasses, so like, he thought I was the lead singer of this fucking band, and these guys were the rest of the band.
But Kyle thought he liked our actual band
Yeah.
at first. Was like, how does this kid know
And
our shitty band?
he goes, I listened to all your music. Oh my god! He's like, can I have your autograph? So I signed this kid's shirt.
It's one of the best stories I ever heard. Kyle came home and was
Holy
just
shit.
cracking up telling
Yeah,
me
it
this.
was a good time. So this kid's got this fucking white T-shirt that has my signature on it for no fucking reason.
I've always been worried about that because my signature is fucking awful. It's like
Yeah.
a chicken scratch.
Oh yeah, mine too. Mine's like a fucking line with a dot for
Yeah.
the period in my name.
Like you always, I feel that was one of the most stressful things for me when I was younger. When someone said, "Right, yeah, just sign this." What do you mean, sign it?
And I used to
use your
scribble.
signature. What the fuck is a signature?
Yeah.
I'm 8.
My signature used to be just like cursive writing of my name, and took me so long to
Right,
do.
yeah.
I worked at this company for like a year and a half where I signed, I'm not kidding, probably 300 things a day, and my signature just became a fucking scratch.
Yeah, it just gets
because
awful, right?
it just you can't to do that 300 times a day
Yeah.
was a
So
lot.
before I moved here, at my other job, I used to have to sign checks every day.
Yeah.
So I'd fucking bosh out a signature, and it was terrible. And then I had to sign some stuff to apply for a work visa, and I looked on my passport and I thought, fuck me, that's not my signature.
Yeah.
So I had to spend about a week while I was at work. I never really did a lot of work as such, right? A lot of the time I would I'd do typing tests online.
Oh, Mavis Beacon.
Yeah, whatever that means.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I'd
Deep
like,
hole.
I'd
No
fucking
idea.
I'd open it up and I'd start typing away. To everyone else in the office, it looked like I was writing a mad email, but really I was just like cat, dog.
Secretly playing
Boom.
RuneScape.
Oh, mate, I wish. So yeah, I was boshing some of those out, and then I had to spend about probably 20 minutes every day practicing my actual signature to get it back on board to what it was. But I also had to still keep signing checks, so I couldn't quite master it because I was still using the old crappy one because that's what I'd signed for the official document for the bank.
Right.
So it was this mix between this garbage signature and this relatively less garbage signature.
I don't think it's like super important how perfect your signature is. I think all they'd really do is just be like, "Hey, is this your signature?"
No, it's not important. But say, imagine you walk up to someone famous and they go to sign like this thing, and they just fucking scribble this little line on it.
Yeah, and then you find out that they weren't actually in stereo.
My signature now is like basically identical to my dad's because his was just a fucking line with whatever. And I think subconsciously I probably stole it from him when I was just signing a bunch of shit and just didn't want to fucking do it. I just literally drew a line.
Once you get to a certain status in life, you have to have a good signature so you don't disappoint people.
And mine looks different every fucking time.
I mean, not true.
Close.
Doctors have some of the worst.
if you went to a book signing,
right,
and someone just fucking did a dot,
right?
Yeah. Oh, all right. Because your signature could be anything. If I wanted it to be, it could be a drawing of a very particular type of penis.
There was a metal band musician. I can't remember who it was. But there was one of them that he would make up a name every single time he signed something. He'd write a different name. I can't fucking remember what it was. But
is there any law determining what your signature should be?
I don't think so.
Because
you could change it whenever the fuck you want. It's probably proper to come up with a new one before you're an adult.
I think it's more so just like they'd be able to compare it to other signatures that you've done in the past because you're going to constantly have a similar signature.
Yeah, so say if my signature was a drawing of a penis.
Yeah.
Is there anyone on the planet that could stop that from happening?
Probably not. But
isn't that fucked?
I just don't think that signifies the name Patrick well.
But I mean, like when you're 15 and you come up with that idea, it might be funny. But when you're fucking 30 and signing your marriage certificate, you might not want the penis on it.
Let's ignore that for the time being, because most places will have like a sign and print. Yeah. So you can sign it and then print your name underneath it.
Right.
So it will still be your signature. Everyone knows that it's you. It's just that your signature happens to be a drawing of a cock.
So, yeah, here, I'll see if I can find this picture. This was one that I had signed.
You have pictures of your signature?
No. I was signing.
It's like, here's a dick I drew on my marriage certificate.
You continue on. I'll see if I can find this picture.
Real quick, the exhibition is similar to the Stampede that we'd went to. It's similar vibes. It's just carnival stuff with bands.
It's raging hay fever that I had when I was there.
It's about like a fourth of the size though. Like it's not nearly as big as the fucking Calgary Stampede, so it's not as crazy. But I went to it's like traveling. The exhibition is like traveling, so it'll go to different cities and stay there for a week.
Okay.
And it was in Regina one time, and I was there with my cousins for a week. And they talked me to go to the X because I hate going. I just hate people in public. I just hate all that shit, especially when I wasn't drinking. But so I went there with my cousins, and I don't even remember where we were walking. I think we were going to see what band was playing. And some girl walks by me, and she just cups my junk. She just like grabs like my balls and my dick with her hand at the same time. Walks by, just does like a quick grab, walks away. I turn around and I'm like shocked. I have like this look of like what the fuck just happened on my face. And my cousins are like, what happened? And the girl walks by, and it's this girl that had like the shitty poof. She was really short, had a shitty tan, and I just looked at my cousins. I was like, I think Snooki just grabbed my dick. And it was just like fucking, it had us in stitches after that.
Where's Kyle off to? He's walking around.
He's trying to fucking, on top of the fridge, Kyle. But yeah, so that's my exhibition story. I was thinking about like this Nazi stuff, and I was trying to think of topical stories. And there's actually a few instances in my life that are pretty awkward. Have you been to the Tattoo Expo here before?
No.
So I went to the tattoo expo one year. I was with my ex-girlfriend, and she offered to pay for a tattoo for me, and I jumped at that. I went to find out that she basically said she'd pay for it, and then after I paid for it, she was like, "Well, I'm not paying you back." So, and I was like, "Well, you weren't here to pay for it, so it makes no sense." Anyways, I was trying to think of what to get for a tattoo, and this guy, as nerdy as this sounds, Patrick, this guy had. Okay, let's see Kyle's thing first.
Okay, I couldn't find the picture, but I recreated it. So we went on this one tour, and this is how I signed everything with our band's name on it. It was just I had a red Sharpie, and I did a big red dick outline, and then just wrote "Where the Heart Is in It." And that's how I signed everything.
I just want to say
was our
that
signature.
penis does not look healthy.
Yeah, that one's not
that's-
good, but like it was just
that's
recreation.
swollen.
And I had a picture of it. I had like 6 pictures that I collabed into one that had like all the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how
incredible.
I did our band signature
I like
for our
that.
tour. Yeah.
So I was at the tattoo expo, and I finally found a guy that was free to do something, because usually they're booked up right away.
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
This guy had Star Wars tattoos, and I was like,
Of course he did.
fuck it, I'm gonna get a Star Wars tattoo. And I was looking, and it was like so sweet, and I'm looking, and I was like picking one. He was like, "Is there one that you decided on?" I was like, "I think I'm gonna get this one," and I pointed at it, and then I started to realize that like hidden within the drawing was a swastika, and I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna get that one." And he was like, "You're gonna get this one?" I was like, no, I might need a minute." He walked away. I'm looking. His entire book, every single design this guy drew had a hidden swastika in the image. And I was like,
Well, it's not like an actual symbol of violence.
right,
It's
but
originally a symbol of peace.
but it's still fucked up that you would put that on somebody who didn't want it on their body just to sneak it in and be like, "Gotcha."
Yeah, I guess so.
So how many people do you think went there to get a Chewbacca tattoo that has a swastika in the middle of his forehead, just fucking like in the middle of the hair, like
Who gets a fucking Chewbacca on their forehead?
Yeah, dude.
no,
With
the
I get what you're
swastika
saying.
drawn on the
That's-
Chewbacca's
that's-
forehead.
that's
That kind of
Really
reminds me of
realistic.
another story, actually. Do you remember the textbook tragedy fight show?
Oh yeah, tell Patrick this fucking story. Holy shit.
So we went to this one show, and it was like there was these 2 bands that were playing that, like me and Kenny. I would say lots of people in the scene were relatively obsessed with, like, love these bands.
Yeah, well, they were like technical death metal.
Yeah.
Which normally isn't my
The
genre,
one,
but
and then the other one was this band Means, which is like one of my favorite bands. And they were both playing this show at this really shitty fucking underground bar.
it was a dive bar in the city.
And it was a decent turnout. There was quite a few people there, but it was mostly like everyone that kind of hung out with each other and like knew each other from going to shows, except for this one guy.
I think his name was Mike or something,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
he showed up, and he was so fucked up on something. And this one band, Textbook Tragedy, were playing before the Means band, and right off the hop at the very first like intro to their set, this guy was right up front and like just trying to pick a fight with the band is what it seemed
He
like.
was just swearing at the lead singer
them,
for no
fucking
reason.
trying to hit him. Like, it was a stage, but it was only like a half stage, like it wasn't very tall, and he was trying to like hit the lead singer and stuff. And every time that they'd stop during a song, he'd be like, "You guys fucking suck," and like, just trying to piss them off. But he was fucked up, like could barely stand. And then he got kicked out, and they played a couple more songs, and he came back in, and he had carved an upside down cross on his forehead.
Carved it.
Yeah, like took
he
a
was
knife and
bleeding.
carved it,
He
blood
carved-
all over his fucking face.
Holy fuck.
And he was like trying to fucking like fight the band, and the
So the
lead,
lead
singer,
singer-
fucking just grabbed his hair and fucking boot kicked him in the face right to the ground.
No,
and
he
then-
he kneed him. He
Did he?
kneed him in the face, and like his nose just exploded.
yeah, and people dragged him outside, and there were so many people lined up to fight him. But I remember there was one girl that just started going fucking nuts on his ass, kicking the shit out of him.
Right.
And-
And we later on found out that this guy was like an ex-boyfriend of one girl that was there.
Yeah.
And like he'd he'd like threaten to disembowel her family and leave their intestines on her like front step and stuff like that.
Has he been questions about the Black Dahlia murder yet?
Well, I don't know if he was born yet.
I think
I don't know if
he
those
was
timelines
just
match up.
Yeah,
but,
I think he was just really fucked up on drugs when this happened. But anyways, the band, like the next time they
6 months later,
Yeah.
they came back on a tour, and they had new merchandise, and we're looking at the merch, and we start to notice like this weird glow in the dark shirt, and we look closely, and it's Lil Wayne with his grills, right? And we're like, what the fuck? But we look closer, and it's Lil Wayne with an upside down cross carved into his forehead.
Yeah, it was pretty fucking funny.
And it was a nod to that guy
Yeah.
from the last
That's
tour.
amazing.
Yeah, no, that was like one of the first like crazy fucked up fights that I saw at a show. Like usually it was just like someone drunk trying to pick a fight and falling down in their own vomit. But like that was pretty fucked up when they saw that. But yeah, your story with carving in the forehead reminded me of that because I remember being shocked. Like how the fuck did someone carve that in their forehead outside?
I just remember everybody being like, what do we do? This guy's trying to fight the lead singer. And then the lead singer literally just grabs the dude's head and just fucking knees him right in the face. But he still continues performing their set.
Yeah,
So
like
they're
he
still
was
playing.
like he was like screaming words into the mic as he was fucking kneeing this guy in the face.
It was like
pretty good.
It was pretty unreal. Like normally you'd be like, "Hey, that's assault," but this guy was like so provoking. I think everybody
yeah.
there would have been like, "Yeah, it was for the singer's safety that he did that, right?"
That's
But
fair.
Yeah, and then after the dude got the shit kicked out of him outside by like a girl, everyone just went back inside and left the dude in the gutter. So I don't know. He stumbled off somewhere.
Fair.
But,
What a
yeah.
fucking idiot.
Yeah, he probably has a fucking upside down cross scar on his head now too.
right.
Probably works in an office wearing a toque all the time.
I got another quick story. Have you guys either had much experience with Tinder? I think Kyle's been dating since before Tinder's a thing.
Yeah, I feel so bad for anyone that has to deal with Tinder.
Did you
The
have any
stories that
Tinder
I hear are just
experiences?
ridiculous.
I never met anyone using Tinder.
Right.
I spoke to many a people, but fuck, were they boring.
Yeah, I'm so happy I found my wife on Facebook. So
Yeah. So
Fucking hell.
Tinder's a mess for me. I'll probably go into some Tinder stories one day, but there's one in particular I wanted to talk about today that I think I might have told you both before, but let's dive into this a little bit. So I was talking to this girl on Tinder one time, and she asked to hang out, and I was kind of at the point where I was like over Tinder, but I was just like, fuck it, I need to get out of the house. I'll just go for dinner and drinks with this girl, right? So we go out, and while we're sitting there, you know, what's the normal small talk that you do? It's like, tell me about yourself, tell me about your family and stuff, right?
No. I
speak
don't.
loud. I'm gonna go for a piss.
So, no.
I'm really, really bad at small talk. The main thing that I've ever done when talking to people that I don't know is usually if something happens that's kind of weird or stupid, I'll say something, and then for whatever reason, people find it hilarious. And I'll be like, oh, these people seem nice. And then I'll usually keep chatting shit to those people, and then eventually I'm left with one of the people, and that one person tends to be the person that I carry on chatting with.
Right.
Whether that's a female or not, I don't know.
Usually not, probably. That's
No.
usually how it works
But
out.
yeah, it's how I've met a few people in the past, but yeah, it's
So typical small talk for me with Tinder, when nobody's like, no conversations happening naturally.
Yeah.
There's the joke where it's like, how about the weather, whatever, right? My go-tos were like, tell me about yourself, tell me about your family, what do you do? Just asking them about themselves. So this girl goes on to say that she plays video games, which I'm like, okay, cool, I play video games too. What do you like? And she said, well, I like the Wolfenstein games, which I'd only played recently for the first time. And I was like, oh, cool, what are those about? And she's like, well, it's about like Nazi Germany, stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. Do you like play as Nazis and stuff? And she's like, yeah, no, sadly not. It's not like you're like an American, but it's like, what if the world was like if like Nazis had actually taken over? So that's a really cool perspective. Like, what if the world today was taken over by Nazis? And I'm like,
Well, we're German, so
I was like, okay, well, where's this fucking going, right? And she was like,
I've always thought that is a cool concept, though.
right.
Because it's fucking nuts.
And the thing is, playing that game, I get it now, but back then it was a fucking
no
red
doubt,
flag,
yeah.
right? So I was like, okay, well, maybe she's like me. She just finds like weird, fucked up things in history, like interesting, whatever. So
a quick question about Nazis to you guys.
yeah,
Do you think that it was Hitler's intention to take over the whole entire world
Yes.
when
Yes.
he started?
without a doubt.
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was so fucked up with his mindset, and he was such a broken human being that he really genuinely believed that there was a superior race, and that race should be the only one.
What I'm saying is, do you think from the very beginning he
Yes.
thought he was taking over the whole world, or he just started getting fucking headway and was like,
Okay.
I could do the whole world?
Okay,
they-
what
they
do you
tried it.
think? What do you think it started out as?
You know what?
Germany.
I don't.
Was it the German War or the World War?
I never did enough research or cared enough to know about that
Yeah.
because like the whole
I have-
Nazi situation is way too fucked up for me to just like
Right.
dig
It
into.
is-
I
it
don't
is
want to
really
live in a
messed up.
world knowing like I would if I had the choice to not know about that compared to know about it, I'd probably not know about it.
See, for me, the
You know?
Nazis sit on the same morbid fascination as any other serial killers to me because it's basically just a collective group of serial killers.
Well, I disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't
There's-
think that.
There
That
was
was-
a lot of Germans that didn't
They were
want to
following.
fight.
Yeah, they were just
Right.
following what they needed.
But
had to
specifically
do.
the person in
There-
general that we're going to
I
talk
agree
about
in that
today.
sense. There were a lot of people that didn't want to necessarily fight, but did have these morbid fascinations.
Yeah.
And that it was like when Trump got elected, and suddenly everyone thought, "Oh, it's all right for me to be a little bit racist. All right, okay, I can jump on board with this."
I don't know which America you're talking about because it's always been racist.
No, but like
different parts of it,
the
though.
closet racists,
Yeah.
were no longer closet racists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or sexist too.
Yeah,
coming
you know,
along with
this,
Trump.
the misogynistic racist mindset was kind of normalized.
Yeah.
As soon as Trump was elected.
But yeah, sorry. So we interrupted your story. We can probably get back into
Sorry, my bad.
We'll talk more about that in
Yeah.
a bit here. I just want to run through the story. So, Patrick, I'm sitting here talking to a girl. She tells me she loves the Nazis, basically. And she was interested in a world that's run by the Nazis. Red flag for me, right? Then she says, hey, we should play on PlayStation sometime. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, my fucking gamer tag's a little embarrassing. It's like Bad Boy 69 or whatever the fuck, right? Like so real stupid I made when I was younger.
You don't want to give it out
No. But so
to the 3 listeners.
yeah, so I told her that and she felt a bit more comfortable telling me hers and she said some weird fucking German word. And I was like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yeah, you can Google it for the spelling, whatever, if you want to add me." And I'm like, "I'll think about it. What does it mean, if you don't mind me asking?" And she was like, "That's the term for like a superior female SS officer." And I'm like, "Okay, so your name that you want yourself to be represented by is the German word for an SS officer?" She's like, "Yeah, a female SS officer." And I'm like, "That's a little fucking weird." So another red flag popped up,
That
right?
is- right. So think about that for a second. That is fucking bizarre.
But
Because-
do
right.
you think that maybe she bought an Xbox, got this game,
PlayStation.
and or whatever, and had to make a name then?
No,
and
because,
that was like something
because that
helped?
term is not even in the game.
Yeah.
No, I know, but like
So she would
yeah.
have gone out to look for what's the term for a female Nazi.
No, I don't
officer
think that.
in
She
Germany?
probably-
But think
had
about this for a
research
second,
about it.
right? There are people today that think women shouldn't have the same rights as men.
right.
really.
But Hitler was perfectly fine with quite superior roles being handed out to women. So there was this weird sense of equality, but also a massive sense of
I don't think there was
discrimination.
that many.
There was some. That's the point.
Right.
There was some.
Well,
It's
there's
just
w-
bizarre to me.
There's women fighting in the war for the Allies too, though.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But yeah,
But for someone that was so content with wiping out this race of people for no fucking reason, And I imagine back then sexism was still like a big fucking thing, right? Because
Yeah.
it was 1939 to 1940 something.
45.
Yeah.
But do you think that Hitler just recognized that he needed females to populate the German
No,
culture?
I think it was probably females that had the same mindset as him and that were really fucked up. Because you've seen the one in Wolfenstein. She's fucking nuts. I doubt
Is
that's
it
a far cry.
Isla the she-wolf or
Yeah.
whatever? That's like a real...
I honestly doubt that's actually that far from reality.
Right.
To what some of these women were probably like.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So when she's telling me this, red flag number 2, and we're like 10 minutes into drinks, right? So later we hang out and we're like going to watch a movie, because at this point I was kind of going on dates to see all the fucking fucked up conversations I'd have with people just to talk about it. Like I went on a date with like a super feminist girl one time, and that's a whole nother fucking story. But so this girl we're watching, we're going to pick a movie to watch, and she starts listing off all of these fucking Nazi movies. She's like, yeah, how about The Boy in the Striped Pajamas? And
Did
I'm
you
like,
give her any,
how about Big Daddy? Do you like Big Daddy? She's like, no. Ooh, Inglourious Bastards is good. And I'm like,
did you give her
Jesus
any
Christ.
hints that you were like into Nazi?
Okay, so this is the thing. I think she thought Tinder was an app for people to get together to burn minorities. Like, I think that's 100% what it was. I don't think it was ever a dating app to her.
Fuck, there probably is an app for that.
But yeah, so we were talking about...
Grindr.
We put on Inglourious Bastards, okay? And we start talking again, and I ask her... She said she has a daughter, and I'm like, well, what's your daughter's name? And she gets embarrassed again and is like, I don't want to tell you. So for me, I'm like, this is a red flag that happened earlier. I want to see where this goes. Let me be Anne Frank with you guys for a second here. I did not see this coming at all. When she tells me her daughter's name is Ava, named after Hitler's wife.
Weird. Did she say that?
Word for word. I asked her why that of all fucking people. She said, well, it's a nice name, and I thought it was pretty empowering that a woman of that stature was so... And I'm just like, holy shit.
Unfortunately, it is quite a nice name.
Her kid was like 10 years old. Say you named it Ava after something else, not Hitler's wife.
It's got less
Why
of an impact.
specify?
Yeah.
So for me, I was
She could
like,
have easily just waved over that.
No, I think she probably thought that you guys were jiving on the Nazi-ness.
I reckon so as well. She found that thing in common.
Just 'cause
She's
I got-
Like she was like, yeah, this guy's a little bit fucked in the head. I'm gonna run with this.
yeah,
blonde hair, blue
This
eyes.
guy's
Yeah.
a little bit fucked, but I also would quite.
You
like
told
some
her your
fingers.
last name, and she's like, yeah, he's a Nazi.
So, so after that, I like cut her loose, dropped her off, whatever. And she ended up like stalking me for like 3 months after that, like texting me from my front lawn, being like, I'm outside, please come talk
Drawing
to me.
swastikas on your windows.
And I'm like, bro, I like went on 1 2-hour date with you. Chill the fuck out. Like we didn't even finish Inglourious Bastards because I knew how long that movie was. And I was like, oh, it's getting late, and I kind of want a coffee from Tim Hortons, and I knew it was right by her house. So I was like, Kate, let's... And I just dropped her off and was like, oh, well, while we're over here, I might as well give you a ride home. And then I just went home and didn't text her again. And she texted me every day for 3 months and was like,
Lord.
was it the Nazi stuff? Was it? Like, yeah, it was the fucking Nazi stuff.
you should have just told her you were Jewish.
Yeah. Yeah, because then she'd still be showing up to my house, but with a fucking blade. So anyways... Those are the 2 Nazi instances I've had in my life, and thankfully I've thought a lot about this, and if I was ever in the position where I had to be like an SS officer or something like that, I'd like to think I'd be the type of guy that would do some good on the inside.
Go against the grain.
Yeah, I'm kind of a rebel in that way. Hail Satan, am I right?
That's why
You say that a lot.
Like I liked Inglourious Bastards, how like the movie kind of pushed towards against Hitler in the end, and it was like from the inside, right? Like, man, if Inglourious Bastards, that's how Hitler actually died, that would have been great. You know,
In Wolfenstein 2, you have to infiltrate Hitler's camp by pretending to be an actor for a movie
On Venus.
on Venus.
It's fucking wild.
And
sounds like a fucked up.
it's a good game.
That to me is fucking nuts as well. Because even thinking about that, like the technological advances that they probably would have had, like I would maybe for 15 minutes, I'd like to see that alternate reality.
We're going to talk about some of the stuff that they had in development that we may never know for sure if it existed or not.
But like, because did they have any
Wasn't
particular
there-
religious standing?
Yes.
Was there something like I'm sure you would have like info on this, but was there something along the lines like Hitler was trying to figure out a way to cure cancer or something like that?
So they were trying to do pretty much everything. They just wanted to beat the world in leading technology and medicine, right?
Okay.
So the reason, so we'll dive into that specifically in a second here. So originally what I wanted to do, because we're going to be watching Overlord, was discuss a lot of the medical experiments that people like Joseph Mengele committed in concentration camps and stuff like that. But I also found a lot of stuff on weapons and technology that I'd like to touch on and get your guys' opinion on. So yeah, maybe we'll talk about the weapons first, and then we'll talk about some of the other medical stuff. Some of the weapons, because Patrick, you've played the Wolfenstein games.
I have, yeah.
So the idea of the Wolfenstein games, Kyle, is what if the Nazis had actually won, and instead of like us getting all the scientists that we had to develop, like the atom bomb and stuff from Operation Paperclip, what if all those scientists joined together in Germany and created all this future technology like Tesla energy and stuff like that, right? Because that's the reason we went to space, is from German scientists that we got from Nazi Germany and stuff like that, right?
Sure.
So some of the stuff that the German scientists were working on, one of the things was a shockwave gun or a sonic cannon, where they basically transmitted microwaves to people to try and turn them into puddles of flesh. There's rumors that this was somewhat successful because we do have the technology today where the military in the US is actually using these weapons on vehicles now. They have them on vehicles, but it's a lower dose microwave, so it's for crowd control. It essentially just microwaves their heads and gives people headaches and makes them incapacitated.
There was something on Dak Shepard podcast about the microwaves and radiation and how it was made, and it was I think it had something to do with like a German scientist.
I'm telling you, man.
And it was something to do with like he figured out the radiation, like how powerful it was, because there used to be like in planes at the front of the plane where the propeller was,
The radar.
it made like radiation.
And they had
and,
do you know
and
this
people were
story,
getting,
Patrick?
People were like getting fried from the inside.
They had the guys that would like load the luggage and direct air traffic. The radiation coming off of the sonar that they were using for the radar was so strong it was melting people from the inside out. It was cooking their organs.
Yeah.
And that's how they found out how microwaves and radiation worked.
And I remember on the podcast, like they do a fact check on there, and they said that like looking into it, it wasn't as bad as they say, like but that's where the idea came
Right.
from.
And they also weren't using as strong radiation as you
Yeah.
probably would be for
But then
stuff
like
that.
some scientist had taken the idea
and that's how
went
they
with
developed
it.
like chemotherapy and stuff, right?
Because I'm assuming they had all this stuff because they weren't abiding by stuff like the Geneva Convention.
So that's the thing.
They had no desire to abide by that whatsoever.
So do you know Joseph Mengele?
Nope.
Have you heard of Joseph Mengele, Kyle? No. So Joseph Mengele is the guy that kind of gave Dahmer some of the ideas for his experiments that he did with the people. He also Jeffrey Dahmer.
Okay.
He also is one of the fucking most famous Nazi war criminals, because what this guy did is he was a specialist in eugenics and genetics. Do you guys know what that is? So it's essentially Sorry, we're drinking here. It's essentially the idea that they can breed out any bad genes that they want. So, like, you know how for dog breeding, you can mix two races and it gives
Yeah.
you the dog that you want? They want to do the opposite to get back to the Aryan race, because what the Nazis believed, sorry, was that
Jesus.
the Aryan race was like blonde hair, blue eyed, really tall, powerful, like beings that came from space, that had psychic abilities, and that's what we were come from. But the reason that we don't have those abilities anymore is from mixed breeding. This is what the Nazis believe.
What's the guy's name? Joseph what?
Mengele, Mengele. So Joseph Mengele, or if you want to get real German with it, Joseph Mengele,
That sounds Spanish.
or Mengele. I don't know how they say
It's probably
it, but-
Mengele.
But
Joseph Mengele.
I've only heard it Mengele, so that's what I'm going to go with. So this guy specialized in eugenics at an actual university in Germany. Their whole thing he specialized in was trying to breed people back to just an Aryan race. So when the concentration camps started up, Joseph Mengele got a spot in, I believe it was the Dachau concentration camp. I'm not positive on that, but what he did was he basically would separate people into groups, whether they're going to go to the chambers, the gas chambers, or to the labor camps. And some of the way he decided this was whether or not certain people were good for his medical experiments. So all the elderly and the kids, he'd automatically send to the gas chambers. Any men and women who could work labor camps, he'd send to the labor camps. This guy is a fucking monster. Because what he did is he started finding twins.
Oh,
And if you have twins, you can mimic the twins. You can also have the twins. This is going to be kind of a conspiracy also based on like some facts and stuff. Okay, I'm just going to premise that right now. So what Mengele did was he tried to specialize in twins and trying to get these twins to breed into an Aryan race and figure out how twins can be reproduced, because then you can reproduce twice as many Aryans at once, right? So what he did was he would take these twins, he'd have one that they would inject with random shit. We just still don't know what it is because all the files got burned when they invaded the concentration camps. All the scientists burned all their shit. So they would inject them with random shit, and this is only stuff that we know from children survivors. So kids would be getting needles in their eyeballs with dye, and they'd inject blue dye in their eyes to see if it would change their colors blue. They would amputate their arm and then see how long it would grow for tissue to grow back. Then they'd inject them with something to see if it grows back faster. They would do all of this with like no sedatives, like no morphine, no nothing. They would just chop off your arm and be like, okay, you're just going to sit here until it grows back. Then they would like rub shit on it and observe which wounds would like act which way. And then they would like coat it with something to see if they could get like a medical thing to fix it better. And they had twins. So the twins, they had one for control where they would have normal, and then one that they'd do all this shit to and see how they'd react to different things, right? He did this with like, it says here, I just wrote this down. He murdered over 3,000 twins in the concentration camp. And that's not including all the children and old people and stuff that he just sentenced to death, right? There's a story of this guy where he got SS officers to take a dump truck full of children under the age of 4 and just dump them, like throw them into the back of this dump truck, still alive, and just dump them into a fire pit that they had. And any kids that tried to crawl out, they just kicked them or poked them back in the fire with a stick or their foot. And they just burned these kids alive. This is Joseph Mengele. This guy's a fucking monster.
Yeah, that's
So-
just like
And these are real stories.
I don't understand the fascination with talking about stuff like that.
So the
though,
reason
either.
I want to talk about this stuff now is because it all relates back to Overlord.
Yeah.
The inspiration for some of the characters and stuff in that movie. Because if you don't know what that movie's about, Kyle, it's about Americans that try to stop like the final mission for some German invasion or something like that, right? So this is where the conspiracy comes in. Joseph Mengele, when the concentration camps were invaded, this guy's a twins expert, right? A lot of the Nazis escaped the concentration camps, and they went to Uruguay and Argentina. I don't know if you guys know that. A lot of Nazis got away to Uruguay, Argentina, and Brazil. So when they did like the trials, the Nuremberg trials, a lot of the big Nazis that actually did a lot of the monstrosities weren't caught. So they got away. One of these people was Joseph Mengele, okay? They have proof this guy went to Uruguay. And then over the years, he worked on a farm. He did testing with animals. And they started to realize, like, some people were speculating that he started to figure out, he would tell people he could make their cows birth twins. And he started injecting animals with random shit. And then over time, people were saying that they were starting to see more animals have twin births.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I saw that in Guinness World Record.
So
The horse or the cow with 2 heads.
So Joseph Mengele
That's not a real thing, by the
got
way.
tired of it, and the Nazi hunters went looking for him. They found out where he was. There's a lot more to this story, so if you want to research it, you can. But this guy escaped from the farm he was working on to Brazil when they almost caught him, right? This is the interesting part. So Joseph Mengele died. When did he die here? 1979, he had a stroke while he was swimming in the ocean. This guy's one of the worst Nazis ever. He had a stroke while he was swimming. That's how he died. In Brazil. The guy got away scot-free, lived a full life, right?
Yeah, he lived too long.
But this is the thing. In Brazil, there's a town called Candido Godoy with a 10% twin rate population. In Brazil, less than 10 miles away from where it was speculated that Joseph Mengele had been living in that time. And this twin population started to rise while he was living there. So I've been reading on this, and there's been a lot of people speculating that Joseph Mengele got there and he started doing his testing because this town was a town made of Nazi escapists. And he would breed these people. If you look it up, it's called Twin Town, and it's just a bunch of twins standing next to each other. It's fucking eerie to see, but it's a German town. They would have let this guy come in, do their testing because he's a famous Nazi scientist. And a lot of people have tried to discredit this conspiracy because there's like no definitive proof. They started saying that like the reason the twin population is so much higher than everywhere else is just from the inbreeding and stuff is what they're saying because they're Germans and the Germans are having sex together in a small town. That's it, right? But the thing is that didn't really start happening until around the time Joseph Mengele got there.
So they're thinking that he had a scientific breakthrough that he introduced in this town.
They're thinking that over the 20 years he was living in the farm, he perfected it on animals, and he moved to this town, and he was testing it on people, and he must have succeeded because now this town has a 10%, like 10% of the population in the town is twins.
That's
1 in 10
wild.
people.
I mean, if I had some kind of medical pill that I could take that would make me have, like, guaranteed to have twins, I'd probably do it just to have 2 kids and get it over with.
Right, but it might not be a
You
pill.
know,
It
I
might
feel
be
that.
something like this guy actually is like injecting random shit into your womb while you have a baby in there.
No, I know, like, I mean, that's like experimental, but I mean, if it was like, if that was something that was proven to be true and it was done, like many people did it, I'd do that.
Right.
I would love to just have twins and get that, like, 2 of the same and done. Have them, work with the 2 of the exact same thing at the same time.
Right, or just
mean, they're different, but-
sell that thing to like porn companies and like get them to pay you big time in 18 years.
Well, that got pretty dark, so I'm going to go have a piss.
Yeah, that's a little backwards.
But the reason I brought that up is because I thought that's like almost too coincidental to me that this guy who's like widely known for practicing this
Well,
experimentation.
he was obviously. I don't want to give this guy any credit because he sounds like a fucking monster, but
That's
he was
the
obviously
thing.
smart when it came to
But like you said,
science.
though, like obviously a lot of these German scientists were smart if they figured out.
Well, yeah, but you got to think,
Radiation
and you know
and
what?
the atom bomb.
There's nothing to say that they were actually German, because, I mean, yes, Hitler is known for his hatred towards German, but wasn't he himself like
Jewish, I mean.
Jewish? Oh yeah, against Jewish, but wasn't he himself like Jewish, or had like a Jewish background?
Yeah, there's something weird like that.
But I mean, yeah, he thought German was a superior race, but that doesn't mean that people weren't faking to be German, like if they were a scientist, whatever, to be part of that.
Right. But so the thing I find interesting is I was reading a lot of doctors discrediting that theory by saying if essentially one of the doctors said that it's from an inbreeding gene. But she also said in the same breath that if you were to test anywhere else with like the same amount of people, the same everything, you wouldn't get the same results. So she basically just discredited her own discrediting. And the thing is, if you think it's from inbreeding, how does that explain places like in the southern states where people are banging their cousins and all that stuff? Like you're not having twins everywhere. Like there has to be some sort of outside interference here for something like to make this gene stand out more prominently.
I think if you did and I'm sure there is people that do the research on it, but if you looked into like stem cells and things like that, if you had a lot of twins to do the research on, someone could probably figure it out now with the technology we have. I mean, the fact that
but that's the thing is it's so inhumane because he killed thousands of twins trying to figure this out.
Yeah, and like I mean, you don't want to be known as fucking Joseph Mengele Jr. Like if you're trying to figure that out.
He did have kids actually.
No, I know,
they're
but I'm
one
saying
of the biggest farming companies in Germany right now.
I know. I'm
It's the
saying you
Mengele
don't
family.
want to be known as like following in his footsteps. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get you, but it's also like it's such a big coincidence that that's a thing though. Like literally miles away from where this guy had been living for 30 years.
Yeah, twins are fucking rare as well. What are the
That
actual
a twin
chances for
town.
twins to be born?
Because
I
this
know-
says it's a
I know if there's-
10% rate.
But there is something with that, because if there's twins in your family history, you are more likely to have twins. I know that's a fact.
Right. So maybe this guy somehow isolated the gene, or like you said, with stem cells or something, he found some sort of workaround. Because the issue with like medical science right now is we're limited by being humane. Like I shouldn't say limited, but there are practices that you have to follow so that you're not killing people. Where this guy didn't care. He just wanted a breakthrough.
So based on the US, the average chance for twins to be born in every 100 is something like 4%.
Yeah, like it's not
So
very
4%
high.
out of 100. This is 1 in 10 people.
You know what's
That's a
crazy?
lot.
You know what's crazy to me though? Okay, so in the past,
I've only met
years-
one pair of twins in my life.
in the past 2
know one,
years,
yeah.
in the past 2 years, I've had 2 friends that like had kids at the same time, like in roughly, and both of them have had twins. And it was like the one is a guy at work, and he came to work and he's like, yeah, I'm having kids. And then like a couple weeks later, they found out it was twins, and they told me. I was like, oh, that's crazy. And then like a week after that, another friend from work, his really close friend, was like, yeah, we're having twins. And I was like, how fucking crazy is that? That like you don't hear people having twins like that, but then like 2 in the same like month.
The thing is,
It's a rare occurrence.
something like that is like, I would count that as coincidental. The thing is, with an entire town of people
Yeah, no, that's
in Brazil, and it's just like
Yeah, man.
where the Nazis escaped to, so close to where this guy was when that was, it's just so crazy to me that that's like something I figured that's something I should bring up because if
Yeah.
people are interested in conspiracies and stuff, this is one you can dive into. It's so interesting. And it's crazy because this guy's such a monster. Like, he's the epitome of everything you'd hate in a Nazi, but he potentially had some sort of scientific breakthrough.
So one thing that does interest me quite a lot is, and I don't know what your opinion is on this, but where do you think we'd be in terms of things like climate change and global warming if we had lost World War II?
Oh, we'd be fucked.
Do you reckon though? Because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of power, and I don't feel like the Nazis would use fossil fuels at all.
See, my thing is I feel like we would have a lot more nuclear energy,
We would.
but we'd also probably have a lot more nuclear reactors blowing up and shit.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there'd probably be a good portion of the world that was uninhabitable.
Right.
But a good portion of it would also be quite clean.
But it would also be this thing where if the Nazis were running the show, there
would
would
be
still
so
be enough people wanting to
overpopulated,
fight them that there would be nukes dropped constantly on both ends.
If there was places that were uninhabitable because of like radiation and things like that, like more than there is, the places that were clean would be so overpopulated too.
Well, they probably wouldn't be,
You don't think?
because they'd have stemmed the population, wouldn't they?
Yeah, like they'd be killing everybody. We'd be
Yeah.
fucked.
If they'd come over to, if they'd managed to invade England, I know you said that there'd be nukes being dropped everywhere.
Well,
But
they
if-
were literally, like, from what I read, they were only a couple weeks away from the same breakthrough that the U.S. had. And the only reason they didn't get it was because they had some of their scientists developing nukes in Antarctica. And then they had other scientists doing it somewhere else. But if those two teams were together, they would have solved each other's issue that they couldn't figure out. But because the communication was so poor, the U.S. beat them to it. And that's how the war was pretty much taken
Yeah,
that way.
I feel like the first people that probably would have gotten bombed would have been England.
Just because it was so close.
Yeah, it's so close, and it was one of the main portions of opposition.
Yeah, and
Aside
it was
from the
like
States.
it was like a big place for all of the fucking troops to come in too,
Yeah.
because it was a safe haven to get
Yeah,
to.
it was that bridging point between Canada, the States, and Europe.
Yeah,
It was because you can literally get across the channel in, depending on where you try and travel across it. You know,
Right.
fucking such a short amount of time.
So. Here's some ideas about what the Nazis were working on back then. That there's a little bit of documented proof that these have been in development. There's no proof that all of these have been created to completion, to the desired effect, because all of the documents have been gone. Everything's been blown up. They tried to scrub everything clean, right? The only stuff that we have is the few documents that we found, and just like eyewitness stuff from the survivors. So, like I said, the shockwave cannon. There's a thing called the sun gun. It was essentially they were trying to put satellites into the orbit that were giant mirrors that would reflect the sun wherever they wanted it, almost like a magnifying glass on ants. And it's something that they were actually like developing, and that's why they were trying to get to space too so fast. They were like working on all this stuff. There's rumors that they had actually developed like UFO quote unquote technology, stuff that could enter orbit and come back before us, but because they didn't want anybody to
It would
have
have
it,
been
they
sweet
destroyed
if
it.
all the Nazis just got on a fucking spaceship and just went to the moon and never came back.
There's a movie about that called Iron Sky, and they eventually come back. There are these things called Feisler-Reichenberg. They're manned missiles. So basically the issues that the Nazis had with missiles was they couldn't control specifically where they wanted it to be. But if they had a man inside controlling it once it was shot, they could pinpoint where they wanted to hit. The only reason it didn't work was because they didn't have enough guys willing to give their lives for it, right? But if they had partnered with the Japs,
Oh yeah,
sorry, that's probably kind of racist to say.
definitely not the right
The
terminology.
Japanese back then, we would have been fucked because of their kamikaze pilots.
Yeah.
Right? They also had a thing called the V3 cannon. They had an X-ray gun that they were developing. A bunch of different rockets. They had giant tanks that are like I think like something like 30 times the size of normal tanks. They were like 500-ton tanks.
Oh yeah,
They had one in development in one of the Call of Duty games that they have. It's like one of the levels on one of the Call of Duty.
Yeah, they
games.
traveled around on like train tracks, right?
Yeah, something like that. But they had one tank called the Rat Tank. It was a Land Cruiser. And the only reason they didn't get it finished was because the Allies blew it up before they could finish it. But if they'd finished it, it could shoot, I think I read it was like 300 miles. So
Fucking
they just
hell.
launch giant like tank missiles at people and towns and everything, just obliterate shit, like huge fucking tanks. And like it's just because we got there in time that some of this stuff wasn't completed, right? They had this thing called the vortex cannon, where they created a vortex with a spinning cyclone, and then they shot a flamethrower into it with napalm. And the idea was in like fields and stuff, if they had all these vortex tornadoes of fire crawling at the field, nobody's going to get to them in time. So they were trying to find a way to shoot directed fire tornadoes at the opposition. And they had it in development. Like they were getting there. Like some of this shit is fucking crazy. And this is in the 40s. Imagine if they'd actually won and kept going.
But you
with
got to
this.
think of the amount of freedom they had and the amount of money that they had to do these kind of
But, like,
experiments.
I feel like they would have still carried on putting that amount of money into it. You know, there probably wouldn't be anything like healthcare or, well, there probably would be for certain individuals.
But they weren't afraid of risking lives and stuff.
No,
to
they
do
didn't
these
care about
experiments.
public
Yeah.
opinion at that point because they'd already got
They
it.
were just trying to make a breakthrough, and they didn't
Well,
care
they-
who's like how many people it took to do it, which is the like craziest part about it and most sickening part is the amount of people that they used for these experiments.
Well, they got to the point where they were out of soldiers, so they had 10-year-old kids and 70-year-old men left in Germany to defend it. That's all they had left to defend Germany. Was like children
Jesus.
with fucking machine guns. Like that's how many people died. This last one I'm going to talk about for these secret things. It's called the Die Glocken or Die Glock, and it's just called the Bell. This is a real one that they have schematics of and everything. They have some plans and stuff, some proof that this is out there. They haven't released everything to the public, and I'm not sure why, but a lot of it is out there. Basically, what it did is it was near the Czech border. They developed it, and it's a giant bell made out of hard, heavy metal. It's approximately 3 meters wide, 5 meters high. It has the shape of a bell. And what it would do, it had like mercury substance in it that they created. It's called serum 525. It's like a weird substance that they made that it was like purple mercury. And it had like some peroxides and shit in it. And what it would do is, I don't remember how it works, but it would like vibrate out some sort of frequency. And within 600 feet, crystals would form in animal tissue. So your skin would crystallize, your blood would turn to gel, and it would separate while plants would decompose into a grease-like substance. So within 600 feet of this thing going off, all the plant life would turn to grease, you turn into crystal, and your blood would turn into a gel. And there was like some weird like anti-gravity shit that they were developing, and there's proof that they actually had this developed and they were testing it out and stuff. And there's like pictures and stuff and schematics and all this shit. But like a lot of it got lost because we got to it. So like if that's one of the things that we know about, what's the shit that we don't know about? This is stuff that I just wanted to bring out there for when we watch.
It's fucking insane,
Overlord.
man.
And this is the thing. This is like I found myself just digging into this for fun because I've always found World War II history interesting. I wanted to be a history teacher because of it. But the amount of crazy bullshit you find reading about the Nazis, like the Thule Society was like a satanic worshipping society that wanted to like make the Aryans come to life. They had like this thing where, like the Ahnenerbe. It was like a group that the SS created that they'd be like, okay, we're going to send a group to go find, what's it called? The Spear of Destiny, which is the spear that killed Jesus or pierced Jesus's skin. So they're like, okay, we're sending a group to go find this artifact. Oh, what's that chalice, that goblet? What's it called?
Fuck.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah.
They were trying to get that. Anything that was of legend, Noah's Ark, they had teams looking for this stuff because they wanted to use these artifacts. They said that they were Aryan artifacts, and they wanted to use them to try and find like powers and abilities to control everybody. Like it's insane because this is all real shit that they believed. Kyle's just checked out at
Holy
this point.
Grail.
I'm
Grail.
doing some research. Sorry.
It like honestly, like I implore you guys to fall down the.
By the way,
rabbit hole on this stuff.
the Holy Grail is on Oak Island. They believe.
Yeah, so maybe
Of course they fucking do.
maybe they should have told the Nazis that. I guess.
Do they also have a couple of my guitar picks on Oak Island?
I'm sure there's lots
Socks.
of guitar picks there.
Is Mr. Tumnus there?
Everything you lose in the washer and dryer ends up on Oak Island.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No
this
doubt.
these are just some of the things. Like if you're intrigued by this stuff, I more so just wanted everybody to kind of get a little bit of an idea about the science and stuff behind this
Yeah.
before we dive into
the
that
main
movie.
thing that I'd really want to see, like if I could just get an insight into that like alternate reality where this did happen, is how far they would have come along with like space exploration.
I was
Because
just
I-
doing
I-
research because I know like WD-40 was used for was created by people working with missiles and things like that. And I was trying to see if it was connected somehow to the Nazis, which there's speculation of it that the people that came up with the idea for it were trained by people that were part of the Nazis.
Right, Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, and so, but it really says it wasn't because the creation of WD-40 was in 1953, which was made for keeping rust protection on the outside of missiles. And this was like in San Diego, California. So it's a stretch, but yeah, I was.
Well,
I
there's
was
things
curious
like
if it
the
was.
Manhattan Project and stuff. If you guys know about that too,
Right.
that happened in the States.
I know the name, but
maybe one of you guys can look into that one and come talk about that one week. But there's a lot of shit, man.
It's just crazy to think like all these people that do have scientific breakthroughs, they could have relations to some of these German.
They could have information that
Yeah.
was never previously available to anyone else.
Yeah.
Because they can you imagine if all of the files still existed and then somehow someone found them
Right,
and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, that's how we do that.
right. Like
Because as much of a shit show as the world would probably be if they had taken over, I imagine things like cancer would probably have been eradicated, but probably not through a very nice way.
right.
Yeah.
That's the thing is because
There would have been just as many people killed and sacrificed to figure out the answer.
Yeah, because cancer is essentially when a cell loses the ability to kill itself when
Well,
it malfunctions, and then it carries on multiplying and then causes tumors.
See, like we mentioned though, like radiation treatment
Yeah.
is a thing that came from that, like a byproduct of that. So
It's nuts, man.
if they would have just been testing melting people with cancer,
Can you imagine if they'd have done all of this stuff without trying to take over the fucking world and killing all of these people?
I think it still would
Yeah.
have been a mess. Just because people don't want people to kill each other.
Yeah. It to me like
But also imagine what the population would be like if we had that extra 20 to 60 million people on the earth still.
Well, the population eventually
That
be
would have
saturated.
quadrupled, right?
I don't know because the population's been growing since then anyway. It was,
But if we had that extra group that was also populating, it would be so crazy right now.
yeah, well, it was something.
That's
like,
such a bad thing to say. I
No, it
shouldn't
was
say
it was
that.
66 million people, something like that, were
Yeah.
killed.
it's a ridiculous amount of number, and it always bothers me to even talk about that or like hear about it because it's like, man, the amount of people that
It's
were
just so
hurt
devastating.
But eventually, the world's population will be saturated to a point where it can't grow and it won't decline. Because we'll get to a point in medicine where there's like a maximum age
Yeah.
that people live to. and then there'll be like a maximum amount
We'll
that people can actually.
We'll have to actually start like basically sentencing people to death as soon as they hit a certain age because your life expectancy is going to get so
Well,
long.
no, it won't be that. It will be you'll
You
get
don't
to a
think so?
certain age, and that'll be it. But by the time you die, someone else is born, so the world's population won't be able to grow, but it won't be able to decline either. And that's probably when we're going to reach some real fucking problems.
Yeah.
Which is why I was so fascinated by this space travel that they were so focused on.
So I think there's rumors that we're trying to get there again just because of the whole Mars expedition and shit that they're working on. But I think like Tesla is actually Tesla?
Yeah.
Or the guy who made the Tesla.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. He's pushing real hard to reinstate the space program.
The thing that frightens
Him
me
and Bill Nye are
is
fucking...
even if we developed faster than light travel, it would still take us something like 20 years to reach the next star. Which is fucking insane.
Yeah,
Because space is consistently separating from itself.
I've been hearing things for like the past 20 years, just rumors, conspiracies and stuff, that they do have like teleportation and time travel shit that's pretty much fully developed. They just don't know in what means that they can use it, and they don't.
Well, there's always the conspiracy theories of like time travel, like
Right.
just like photographic quote proof of things of time travel, which like they look out of place, but I mean it doesn't necessarily prove it.
Like Nick Cage vampire.
Or like that the hipster in the 1930s or whatever, like those pictures.
Yeah.
But I mean, if the government did have like time travel figured out, it would be extremely dangerous for them to just have that publicly released, because like the only people that I'm sure would be able to use it would be the rich people, and yes, some of them would use it for good, but just like
a lot of them would be like
every
George
fucking
Hodels.
comic book, there'd be some bad people that are rich doing shit too. It's just like power is fucking a touchy subject when it comes to people, because like everyone is fucking unpredictable.
What's the first thing you guys would do with time travel technology? If you got to vote on how we would use it, what would you guys vote for? For me, 100% it would be time cops. Go back in time and figure out who the Zodiac is. You know where he's going to be when he's going to be there.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
It's not a
I
bad
mean,
show.
you know
It
when
would-
Elizabeth Short's going to get dropped off the Black Dahlia. Go figure that
it
out.
would help, but it would also like change history, because if you had people figuring out who the Black Dahlia...
What if you were just observers?
Okay, but if
Like,
you
what
had,
if that was the...
but if you had a time cop that jumped back and figured out who that was, you know how many people that have made careers out of from that changed their life.
Yeah.
Like hearing about that made them cops and probably saved many other people's lives.
Sorry, I'm laughing. I was just picturing some guy goes back in time. He's like, I'm going to solve this Black Dahlia case. And he's just standing there watching the body get dropped off. And then he leaves, and then somebody's like, there's a body. And they turn around, and there's the time cop. And they're like, it was him. And then he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah,
But you know what I mean? It's like with time travel, you change one thing, and I do believe that if that was a thing, it would change so many things. And it could be for the better, but it could also be devastatingly worse.
Yeah.
It's true. It's such a weird thing to think about, how the tiniest thing could affect so much other stuff. It's wild.
Okay, so let's say we can't find a way to get to another planet, and where our population's getting crazy. Would you rather invest on getting to another planet, or would you rather invest on like dimension travel? Like if you could just shift over to the next Earth that
You
maybe
build
doesn't
up.
have population.
Well, the only problem with that is that you don't know where you're going to end up.
Right,
You could end up in just like a hellscape.
right.
Because I like to believe
Just
that
end up in a world where everybody only wears shorts in minus 30.
That's it, yeah.
I would
30 degree
rather
weather.
I would rather invest in like space travel, because if you could find another habitable planet that, I mean,
Are you not scared of what they'd bring back with them that's habitable though? Like that's habitating there?
well, that's not what I mean. I mean like a planet that could be bare, but has
So
the
the
means
only
for
thing
a
that
means for
the only thing
water.
that a planet needs for survival is some kind of liquid water.
Exactly.
But there are other things that can live on things like methane.
Because even if it
doesn't
takes
have to be liquid water.
even if it takes 20 years to get to another planet, if you were in your 40s and you have kids and you make the choice to take your kids to this planet to live out the rest of their lives there, and you know already that like it's there is people that are living there, like it's another Earth. I wouldn't be opposed to doing that, going and spending my last 20, 30 years living on that planet and then having my kids have a potentially better life on another planet.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. If I was told that I had a terminal illness, but
Not even
I could be, I don't know, frozen.
I
and then
get
sent over
your
somewhere
your
else.
point too, but for me it's like I wouldn't even need a terminal illness. Even if I was if I like was 80, I would take a 20-year trip and die on the fucking plane or like the spaceship.
Welcome aboard WestJet
just to
flight
know
to
that
Kepler 521b.
just to know that my kids and grandkids and stuff could have a better life potentially on this other planet, because with the way Earth's going right now, man, it's sketchy, like the amount of shit on the internet and things like that. Like,
Well, you keep
it's
hearing
pretty
like
terrifying
in 5
to
years the
think of.
ozone's going to dissipate and we're all going to suffocate.
Yeah, I try not to think about that stuff, but
Well,
just
there's other things that there's a planet called Nibiru, which is it's from like Aztec mythology or something like that. That's supposedly going to collide with Earth relatively soon, like in the next couple thousand years or something like that.
yeah.
But the one thing that is going to happen is that the Milky Way will collide with the Andromeda Galaxy, which will be insane.
What does that mean?
Nothing good, I don't think. It means planets colliding with other planets.
I mean, it'll happen.
Well, if you think about it this way, there's a black hole at the middle of the Milky Way.
I mean, like for us, as long as we have the sun and the moon, we should be fine.
Oh yeah, we'll be all right.
It's
Yeah.
I don't know. Earth
Milky
is,
Way,
it's
though, does that mean unlimited cereal?
And you know, people always talk about like overpopulation on Earth and stuff, but fuck, man, if you look around, like just looking out the window right now, you could put another fucking 300 to 500 houses in that field right there.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
So the thing that confuses me is that the time that Earth has left is finite, and eventually will come to an end. Like, I would be genuinely fine if someone said, we're going to take another $50 tax off your paycheck to invest in space exploration. I'll be like,
Suit
fucking
yourself, man. They're
take
taking
a-
enough off my taxes already.
Fucking take 100. Just take it.
Yeah, I don't
If
know.
I can genuinely see stuff. Well, no,
Changing.
imagine this:
That's
$50
the-
out of everyone on the planet's paycheck.
That's
if
the
I had a
headache, though.
kid, it would be different, but I
Yeah.
don't have kids, so I don't fucking care about the future of the planet.
The headache with that is you already see taxes and taxes and taxes coming off and no
Nothing's changing.
change.
Exactly.
There's still fucking potholes and they're
But
taking $20 a
Say
month
if
off
they
my...
took something out of your paycheck and you knew exactly where that money was going, and
You'll
there was
never know.
proof
You'll
every
never know.
there was
Yeah.
proof every year. They sent out documentation and proof that
Yeah.
every cent they took went into that program.
Yeah. You know what? If they
Good luck.
lowered the prices of things, I'd give half my paycheck away to fucking cure cancer and cure diseases and things like
So
that.
that's one thing that I don't think, and it's sad to think about, but I highly doubt will ever be cured, because it's like I said before, it's that ability for a cell to kill itself when it becomes faulty.
I think
It's everyone. You think about the amount of cells you have in your body.
I think
It's a
they're
ridiculous amount, and for just one of those to fuck up.
I believe that the government already knows how to not necessarily cure cancer, but to predict and cure the future of cancer developing in a body. I do believe that they've already come to that because it hurts my brain to think of the amount of money that has been put into cancer research, and the fact that they say they haven't come up with enough
Okay, so
is ridiculous.
what do you think is more profitable, having a cure for cancer or having people contribute? Because I guarantee if they released a cure for it, there would be queues of people in their millions waiting for treatment.
No, I know. I get that. But if you think about it now, there's already like stories, like tons and tons of stories of people that have money that had cancer and don't anymore.
Yeah.
You have money.
Because they caught it early. There are some forms of cancer that you cannot do anything with. The only thing that
Yes.
you can do is
I'm not
prolong
saying
the
I'm not saying
inevitable.
all of them, but I mean it is a conspiracy theory, but I think that there has been more breakthroughs when it comes to cancer research than that has been released and
Yeah, I feel like
produced,
if
I
they
guess.
had found anything to completely eradicate this, because it's not something that you can stop ever happening. People will continue. It's like your car breaking down. People always need mechanics. Cancer is always going to be a thing.
Okay, but you know what? When it comes to mechanics, you don't. I could see that being eliminated in time.
But also,
Because
like,
if people if you came out, like, this is kind of a stupid thing because I feel like I do know more about vehicles than you guys.
Oh, you do,
But
yeah.
if you, in my opinion, if everyone knew, if you were in elementary school and you were taught how to change your oil and inspect things on your vehicle for regular maintenance, there'd be no fucking use for mechanics. Because if you were able to do the work to your vehicle and have the knowledge of it, which I bet you majority of people don't have the knowledge of, there would be no use for mechanics because they would not have a job, because everyone would be able to do the maintenance themselves. And what wrecks a vehicle is not doing the regular maintenance.
I would also argue that doctors are mechanics for people. And
Yeah.
like eliminating cancer is
I don't know about
trying
that.
to get rid of
Because there's
But
so
a
this,
death
many.
this is what I mean. You won't eliminate cancer.
trying to find a cure for it is just trying to find a way to get rid of a death
This
sentence.
is what I'm
That's all
saying.
it
There,
is.
there will never be a cure for it. You can't stop a cell
Yeah,
from breaking down.
I agree
but
with
what
that.
you can do
You can revert it
is
probably.
eradicate that cell or
Or-
that area.
Yeah, and the
So say
other
if they
thing
found,
is
they found a cure for that one issue, that one malfunction.
Yeah.
that's probably the best. That
I'm not saying
we're ever going to.
I'm not saying you can necessarily cure all cancer by getting rid of it. I'm saying I believe that there's been research done to stop cancer from starting, and I could see that would be like, if it got released to the public, I could see how it would be a giant clusterfuck. But I could, if I was a fucking doctor doing research on cancer, what I would try to do is figure out how to find why cancer starts, and if there's a way to figure out where it would potentially start on a specific person before it does, and how to eliminate it ever starting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, when it comes to research, like cancer research, if I have that thought, I'm sure tons of other people have had that thought and
But
have probably
I
had
think,
breakthroughs
I
on
think
that.
that's part of the problem, because I think it's impossible to tell. You can assume that certain people are more likely to be afflicted by it, but you have
It's-
no idea where it'll form.
Yeah, it's
entirely
hard.
random.
But it's crazy to me, and I mean, it's probably just the time, like the changing of times, but it's crazy to me to think how many people you hear now being affected by cancer or having family members compared to 100 years ago. But I mean, 100 years ago, you didn't know
There was
what
probably
you were dying
still
from,
the
right?
yeah, there was probably still the same amount, but no one had any idea how to detect it.
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
just didn't
back
have
then
the
it was
name
mostly
then,
just
right?
fucking radiation poisoning because everything was made of lead.
Well, it always goes back to that classic old saying that I live my life by. Ignorance is bliss, boys. Let's keep it that way.
Yeah,
I think
it's such a touchy subject when it comes to that, and it's even for me, like I haven't had people in my life that have had a lot of like very closely with have issues with cancer, but I've had family members that have had to deal with that, and I know for Kenny, like he hasn't really had close family members deal with that. I mean, we've had relatives, but not very, very close.
Yeah, I don't know, dude.
But,
I don't know if you can speak for me on that, but
yeah,
yeah.
it's a hard thing to have to deal with that, and I know I haven't had to directly deal with it yet, but just having family deal with that has been
It's
life changing already. It's crazy how close everyone is to it, though.
Yeah, man. It can form anywhere. Just like garbage podcasts like this.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Deep.
Yeah, that was great for an episode of a comedy podcast.
That was fun. That was such a tangent.
Yeah.
Jesus, the last 30 minutes of that was just...
Let's end this with the classic question that everybody needs to ask. If you had the availability to time travel, would you go back to kill Hitler?
No, because I've seen a TV show once where someone went back to kill Hitler, but they dropped their cell phone and then teleported back, and they won World War II because they had cell phone technology.
Isn't that what you're rooting for, though, you fucking weirdo? I don't think Family Guy is something that you could base your scientific values off of.
I wouldn't go back and kill Hitler, but I would go back and try and change his mind and give him a better give him a
the
better
amount of meth that dude's been pumping in his body. I don't think you'll change his mind.
but he had a pretty shitty upbringing that obviously made him the way he was. If you could go back and give him a different point of view on life, he might have been a different person and used his brain for other things.
I don't know. I think some people are just hardwired completely differently from others.
But you know what? You could have went back and changed that, and the next guy could have done the exact same thing. So.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It was the perfect storm, and we'll be able to watch a movie that is full of what ifs this week. This episode will be out on Tuesday, I believe, and then this following Friday we will be watching Overlord, which Kyle has never seen. So I'm excited to revisit that. And now that we know a little bit about the weird shit the Nazis were developing and some of the historical stuff behind that, we will be able to go through that with a new approach. Next week we will think of something funny, hopefully some more stories and stuff.
Let's after Overlord, we should probably get back into some comedies and fucking start
lighten
laughing.
the load a bit. Yeah. So maybe Patrick will come up with his own game one of these days. Maybe some British would you rathers would be a pretty funny thing.
It's a podcast, Patrick.
Would
you
you
can't
rather
get by on your looks.
a cloudy day or a rainy day?
Fuck you both.
And fuck Judge Reinhold.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening and
Get a life.